What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable HVACR podcast. You can listen to it on or watch it on YouTube. Listen to the audio version on any podcast platform, all the major ones. And you can basically just search Reliable HVACR on any social media platform. Like, I'm trying to build them all up. I really appreciate all the support and love, getting all those built up and showing up and tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Now, in today's episode, we have a really great guest. This is we'll get into how he got into the trades, how he his experience beforehand, that led up to where he is now, which is basically running a safety business. So we're going to get into stories, into our own experiences with accidents, near misses, all the stuff that he sees, because this is his line of work. Basically, this is what he does every day. So today's guest is Terry Dussault. He is a founder of Yellowknife Consulting Services. He's been Southern California's top safety expert for over 25 years. Terry specializes in preparation and implementation of safety training programs related to California OSHA, DOSH, EPA, and DOT regulations. So a lot of experience, he has a lot of knowledge about what to do in these certain situations, how to prevent these things, and just to be safe. All the guys over on Instagram, you've seen these guys that are in the trade, much older. Work safe, be safe, uh, get back home the way you left it. All this advice, as you get older, you kind of realize that you got to take care of yourself. Now, when I was younger, I didn't do that. I thought I was invincible. I thought it was Superman, and now I feel it, right? So there's different things. There's wear and tear on your body. There's just plain out accidents. You don't want to have anything severe happen to you or your life taken away. You only have one. So, like I said, today's episode is going to be an interesting one. I promise you, we're not trying to lecture you or anything like that. I did talk to him before the show to see how we're going to do this, and I just think it's really interesting. There's no push on anything. There's no force feeding you guys anything. It's just a conversation that I'm having with a safety expert who came from the trades. But first, let me thank our channel podcast sponsors, helping me get these awesome episodes out to you guys. Have you ever had an annoying issue that you could have resolved if you've only seen what the other person on the line was seeing, especially when you're backed up and you have a million places to be? Well, you can say goodbye to that frustration with TethrIT Now. This lets you step right into their situation remotely without any mobile apps or software downloads. You can use live video and augmented reality to guide, simple fixes or assess a situation before you have to go out there. Reduce wasted trips, boost first-time fix rates, and increase customer satisfaction. Customers happy, they're going to keep calling you. There's no doubt about it. No apps, no downloads, just a text message link to connect. The future of remote support has arrived. You can learn more at VIZALOGIX.com/HVAC. And of course, our other sponsor is my favorite CRM, Jobber. You can quote, invoice quickly and efficiently. People like us can't be behind a desk all day. We have to be out there in the field. You can use Jobber on the go, on the job site, with their mobile app or any device that uses a browser and internet. You can schedule jobs, dispatch techs, set reoccurring jobs like maintenance, real-time price lists, and much, much more. It's affordable. You look very professional. It helps you get paid quicker in the end. And if you're still using pen and paper, it's a no-brainer. Visit getjobber.com/reliable HVACR. All these links will be in the description of the YouTube video, show notes of the podcast. Check them out. You get a free trial and discount if with Jobber, and then you can learn more about VIZALOGIX in the links below. Now, let's get on with the show. Please help me welcome Terry Dussault. Hey, Terry, how are you doing?
Great. How's it going, Adrian?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, we're staying busy over here. It's hot again in Texas. I don't know how it is. You're in California, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm down in Southern California, and we just had a little heat spell recently, but probably nothing compared to where you're at.
I think we're getting 90s again, man. I was like so happy because we got a cold front and it
Uh-huh.
was like 50s, real nice. And then like, it's like, the sun came back out. It's all hot again. So,
Yeah.
Texas is no like a AC season all year round. So we're always busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you just quickly, for everybody watching and listening on the podcast, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company?
Yeah, my name's Terry Dussault, and my company name is Yellowknife Consulting Services. And we specialize in providing contractors with safety training, safety programs, and site inspections. And we even do incident investigations for some clients. So it's a kind of a wide ranging service that we provide, a lot of documents and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
So you cover a little bit of a few things, right? Like you said, site inspections. Do you also do like training to help them with the safety trainings?
Yeah, I do a lot of in person training, but one of the things that we're about ready to launch, and it'll be available here in the next 10 days, is we have about 100 trainings that we're going to be available through our website. And a lot of them are
Oh,
going to
okay.
be in Spanish too, which is really good. So we're really excited to launch that because training is the key to everything, I think, as far as safety goes. And but not all online trainings are created equal, and a lot of people find them frustrating. So it took us a while to figure out, you know, what angle we wanted to take with that. But I think we teamed with the right people now, so I think this is going to be good.
That's really awesome. Having some sort of like online education and having it in multiple languages. I'm particular to that because we deal with a lot of Spanish
Hmm.
down here in Texas where I'm at. So good things to hear. You also do investigations, you said, on accidents. So do they call you out to, like, when something bad happens, to go and check that out?
Yeah, usually it could be something minor, or it could be something like I did incident investigation not too long ago for somebody that lost a finger, and a lot of struck by incidents where people get hit with something, or that kind of thing. But yeah, I've done hundreds of incident investigations over the years, so I've seen a pretty uh, a large variety, we'll say, of different things. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine if you are
Hmm.
like specializing in this kind of field, like that's all you see. I'm sure you've seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you said you're from Southern California. Is this all in this area, or do you travel out for this kind of stuff too?
Well, usually the when I do incident investigations, it's locally, because sometimes I have to hit the job sites and go
Yeah.
actually see what happened. So I spend a lot of time in the Orange County, LA area mainly. Yeah, but I can do incident investigations over the phone, as long as I have a representative from the company helping me on the other end usually. So
So this is your company, right? Like, do you have other guys that help you out with this, or is it just you right now? How big is the company?
right now we're pretty small. We have 5 employees total. So
Okay.
yeah, I do a lot of the heavy lifting and stuff, and then I have other people that help me take care of other things. But yeah,
Are you
that's
are you the only one that goes out to the investigations and the trainings, or uh, like everybody else does something else, or are you the only one that does that kind of stuff?
I usually do the investigations myself, but I have another person that's really good at it too. So
Oh, okay.
sometimes him and I have to collaborate on these investigations and try and figure out like what really happened, because a lot of times, in the investigations, people people lie, or they have a different perception of what happened
Yeah, it
in the
happens.
incident, and it's sometimes it's hard to get to really figure out what happened. You just based on a lot of variables that are out there. I did one incident investigation, and it was the only one I really couldn't figure out all the root causes, and part of the reason was because I could not interview the injured party, and that person happened to fall through a roof, and so
Mm.
they were actually doing HVAC work. So yeah, that one was luckily he didn't get hurt too bad, but we never got the opportunity to interview him, so that was unfortunate. But
I got you.
yeah,
So, yeah, well, I'm sure you have stories, and when this episode was coming up on my schedule, I was like, I didn't think about it or I didn't think too much about it at first, and I'm like, no, you know what? We've had incidents too where things can happen on the job site, and the skilled trades in particular, whether it's construction or any of the different trades in any aspect, because we do service and we still deal with a lot of dangerous things here and there, and there's a few stories there, and we'll get into that in a bit.
sure.
And I can, I think that's really cool, having a small company there that you run there. I'm also a small business. We have about 4 to 5 guys as well here, and safety is like one of the things that I don't want to say we struggle with. We try to keep everybody safe. We try to make sure that they have everything they need. And then like just seeing things come out. Like I got a little, I don't know, contraption to latch my ladder to roofs. That way it doesn't like sway or anything. Because us and the getting on roofs with the extension ladders and whatnot. Usually the only thing you can do is put a bungee or something like that, and sometimes that bungee comes off, or like you have too much give there. So every time I see something that can help us and help the guys out, we try to implement that into our business. Um, but like me and my dad, we run this business, and even us, we struggle with like asking for help, heavy lifting, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, understood.
So how did you get into this? Like, were you in the trades before or anything? Did you have something else that you did before the whole safety consultant?
Yeah, in fact, I didn't even really want to do safety, to be honest with you. It was it was kind of weird how it all happened, but I worked for a company, and we did a lot of work for the big oil companies, and we would do installations of groundwater treatment systems and these machines. They're called soil vapor extraction systems,
Mm,
and that was to remove contaminated groundwater and then bad gas vapor that was in the ground. And so I put in about probably, I'd say, a good 50 of these systems over the years, and there's a large part of that that's mechanical, and there's a large part that's also electrical. So and a lot of plumbing, so I got a lot of experience that way. And how I got into the safety side of it was that the oil companies, they they were kind of like at the forefront of safety, and they
okay.
wanted to have all their contractors and subcontractors trained to this certain program that they had put together. And basically, if you wanted to do work for them,
Hmm.
uh, you were required, or somebody from your organization was required, to go through their extensive training. And somehow my name got picked. And so I was elected to go and do this, rigorous course. And it kind of grew from there. It came easy to me, honestly, because
Yeah.
once you've worked in the trades,
Yeah.
once the concepts, the safety concepts and things that we were learning were pretty foreign to me, that I didn't know, really where they were going with all this, but it was pretty intense. And then the more I learned, the more I realized how safe I worked, or unsafe
Mm.
I worked,
Yeah.
over the
That
years.
you always realize that, I think, day
Yeah.
to day.
And even now, like, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I think back to some of the subtle little things I did on jobs, and and how I could have done them differently in a more safe way, So yeah, it's
Oh yeah,
really yeah.
like in hindsight, 2020,
Hmm.
you can realize where you were not as safe as you should have been, or you kind of risk your safety in some aspect. It's just the nature of the trade, which is unfortunate, but I think that's why I think it's important. And doing this episode here, I think was uh, it can educate a few of the viewers and listeners, because safety is important. You might not think about it at the time, and then looking back, you're like, man, I really could have messed my back up, messed my hands up, my knees. There's a lot of things that we don't think too much of at the time, and then later you kind of pay for it, or God forbid, an accident happens.
Yeah, for sure. Like one accident could be a life-changing event. And
Yeah, it
that
could
could
alter
yeah,
you and your future,
yeah.
your what you can do as far as your job and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, I'll share this with you real quick, but a really close family friend who's not in my circle as far as work goes, but he's been an electrician for 23 years. And he's a guy who's never missed work. He never gets sick, and he's always at work. And he prides himself on being an electrician, but he's never gotten hurt on the job either until about 4 months ago. And being an electrician, you would think electrocution or shock would be the thing that would get him, right? Because complacency, you get comfortable, and people get zapped.
That's the
Yeah.
part that I hate the most about my job, is the electrical part of it, because we deal with a lot of high voltage.
Yeah, yeah, and it can be scary, for sure. And so it turns out he ends up getting hurt on the job, and what happened is he was standing on the top of a 3 foot uh, step ladder,
Hmm.
and he was doing a task, and he actually slipped and fell off the top, but he landed on a hammer drill.
Oh,
Okay, so I don't know if it was him or somebody else, but they were using a hammer drill, and it was upside down with the bit sticking straight up. And he landed on this hammer drill, the bit, and this is going to sound kind of gross, but it went through his testicles
oh
and
man.
went up in him about maybe 4.5 inches. And luckily for him, he didn't, aside from his testicles, it didn't get any of the vital organs inside. But
Okay.
he's still recovering from that.
And this
And
was, you said, like 4 months ago?
yeah, he's still recovering from that. Yeah.
Oh man, I
And
can't imagine.
so, these, obviously that's kind of a rare thing, but his whole career he's been safe, and it's just this one time it has to be something like this,
Yeah,
you know.
you never know, because like I've had those near misses, as we talked about, like they're you might catch yourself slipping, you might catch yourself in certain situations, and you never know how bad that accident could be, because like that's horrific. Like that's some Final Destination type of stuff right there.
Yeah,
And the long-term effects, obviously, because I've had uh not to me, like I've tried to be as safe as I can, obviously, like before, maybe I wouldn't wear my gloves all the time, I wouldn't wear the right boots, things like that, because we work in kitchen. So
oh,
it's important not to slip in the kitchen too. The shoes that you wear, and the kind of boots that you have.
yeah,
um we're working around a lot of hot stuff, fryers. I try to stay covered head to toe,
right.
cover all parts of my skin. And my dad, though, has had accidents, that has messed him up in the long run, right? So he's had multiple back surgeries because of a work accident early in his career, like, right off the bat, he got injured pretty bad. So he's had to deal with that. He's very stubborn. He doesn't like to ask for help. He doesn't like to stay at home or anything like that, because when he used to manage another, like a competitor for us. He used to manage them when he started, and he worked his way up to supervisor, branch manager, all that, and they try to keep him in the office, and he didn't like it. So he just went out and made his own company, started his own thing, and now
Yeah.
we're trying to keep him, to hang back and stuff. But no, he's out there with a bad back and everything, and it's just unfortunate because that's that's messed him up for a long time, just having that back injury and having a couple of surgeries there, and you never know what could happen.
Yeah, sometimes you have the accident and then you have the surgery, and the recovery
Oh yeah.
sometimes isn't exactly the outcome that you had hoped for, and you have to live with pain. And you know, nobody wants to live with pain because it affects you your whole life. I mean, I know my mom broke her back in a car accident when
Mhm.
I was a young boy, and I saw that her whole life she lived in pain, and that's not a good quality of life. So the idea here with the safety is, do the right thing, but think about, you're just trying to preserve your quality of life. You want to go out and make a buck, right? But which is important because we want to provide for our families, but not at the cost of getting hurt. That's not that's not ideal, we'll say.
No, and I think about it more now because like I have kids and stuff, right? I want to come back home in the same way that I left, right? I want to come home safely, be able to play with them and take them out and do things. I can't do that if I get hurt on the job, if I fall off a roof or anything like that. So that's always on my mind now. Every time I go on like a really high roof or sort of a sketchy roof that we see, because like nothing's perfect. There some stuff does come up, and you kind of think about it. But like for me, I actually had it wasn't work related, but I used to play sports. I tore my ACL, and I had a bad surgery, right? Kind
Right,
of
right.
messed me up a little bit, and I have that to deal with at work now too. And I kind of think even more now because like I have a bad knee, uh, dealing with this kind of stuff, right? So I make sure that I have like the knee pads, the right boots, like I said earlier. I wear a lot of gloves now. I have different kinds of gloves,
Yeah.
because like and that's not stuff that and what I was getting to is like when I started, I thought I was like invincible. And I think a lot of guys start out like that, right? You think you can lift everything, you think you can work without gloves, work without any safety gear, but you never know because uh and I've gotten stuff because I post on social media now. I have a YouTube channel and all that.
Uh-huh.
And I've had guys get after me like when I like in the early stuff, like you're not wearing your gloves, like kind of example are you setting and this and that. So now I it that's kind of a thing, right? Is the whole like old school mentality about things is like, oh, and I've seen it on other people's comments, like you got soft hands or you got this and that, and they expect you to be all like roughed up, essentially, right? But it's like, no, if we wear the right gear, if I'm
Mhm.
wearing gloves all the time, my hands shouldn't be that dirty or that messed up, right? Like it's just a mentality that's changed.
Actually, you know what? You're bringing up a really good point, Adrian, because when I started doing a lot of work for the oil companies, they were very strict about having a glove policy.
Hmm.
And, a lot of people complain because the type, they're like, I can't work with these things, but there's so many different types of gloves now, and the materials
Hmm.
that they're making the gloves out of. There's a glove for every task, even when you're doing, mechanical tasks with where you need the dexterity,
Yeah.
but a lot of times when I go out and do site inspections, like I have one client and they have over 300 employees. So when I go out to a project, they could have 50 guys, 60 guys working on one job. And one of the things that I do when I do my inspections is look at their hands. If they have dirty hands, it tells me they're not wearing gloves, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I use that because I was the guy in early in my career. My first job that I had, or my first business I started years ago, was a pressure washing business, and I ran that for 10 years. I started it when I was 19, but my hands had callus, and I never wore gloves, back then.
Yeah.
So But you're right. Your hands, that's a good indicator. And you need to wear gloves and protect your hands. I've got so many pictures of hand injuries that from incidents that I've investigated. And
Yeah, I can imagine. Cause like, I used to come home, like, with cuts all over my hands, like, and all that stuff can be prevented, just by wearing gloves. Cause even now, like, I still look around to see what's the best glove out there. Cause, a lot of them are touchscreen, friendly, right? Cause we
yeah,
do a lot of stuff on our tablets or our phones now,
right.
or
Mhm.
even just answering the phone. But, I have a lot of, like, equipment that requires, like, a Bluetooth connection to my phone or something like that. So I'm looking for gloves that I can feel stuff with. I can touch, use my touch screen. And then, another pet peeve of mine is when guys wear their gloves, or they're oversized, right? So I like, I'm I'm about 6 feet. I'm a 5'11",
Uh-huh.
and I used to play basketball. Like, I'm pretty. I'm not super tall or anything, but like the gloves, I'm a large and everything else. But like when the gloves, I was like, no, those are too loose. I get the medium, I get the tight fit, and that helps with the whole, like, when people complain, oh, I can't feel anything with the gloves, or I can't pick up things, or things like that. Maybe it's a size or the type of glove that you have. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just go to Home Depot, or go to whatever store you go to, and there's gonna be a wide selection now, to where it's like, different cut level resistant, touchscreen friendly.
Yeah.
I have gloves that are for winter too. Like, there's a ton out there.
Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned is the fit, right? So uh sometimes your PPE, it could actually become the hazard. And
Mhm.
for example, what you mentioned with the gloves being too big, there was a guy that I worked with way back in my early part of my career, and he got his hand stuck in a sanding disc. This thing was
Okay.
probably like 2 or 3 horsepower. It had a big giant disc, and he was sanding some sheet metal, and the fingertip of the glove got sucked in between the sanding disc and the metal
Man.
plate, and there was only like maybe a quarter inch there, but
Mhm.
just enough for that fingertip to go in there. And this guy was big and tall. He and I had to take him to the hospital because it sucked his hand in, and that was before I ever was into safety or anything.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, sometimes you got to really like kind of look at the PPE too, because uh, that could be the hazard, or you might not have the right type. You know.
Exactly, because that's just a pet peeve of mine when I see
Hmm.
guys with oversized, like, a gear, right? Like, that's another thing. Make sure it fits right, whether it's part of your uniform, gloves, because like the main complaint is like, oh, I can't, like, pick up things, I can't feel anything. I'm like, I wear my gloves super fitted. I have the right type like, I've tried different ones. I found some that I like, so I keep my gloves on, honestly, like, the whole work day. Like, as soon as I get out of the van, I put them on, and they don't come
Yeah.
off until I get back in the van.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Good. That's good. Yeah. I
and
worked
that's
at.
just something that I learned, because like I said, I didn't do that at the beginning. I came home with cuts all over my hands. We deal with a lot of chemicals too, and a lot of, different cleaners and refrigerant, because I do
Yeah.
HVAC. So, even like some of the coil cleaners, right? We use them to clean the systems out, when we do maintenance and different things. The old stuff that we used to use, because I try to. That's another thing. Like, it was too dangerous for us, and it's not worth it, because it was really corrosive and acidic.
Yeah.
If we got that on our hands, like, that would start messing with your skin and kind of eating away at it. Nothing crazy, but like, it would feel horrible. It feel like you got a little what do you call it? Rug burn on your hand for a bit.
Yeah.
And then, like, it was never good. So, like, after that, I'm like, I need to wear gloves. And then obviously we changed our chemicals, because we don't need that harsh of a chemical on a daily basis. So we kind of looked into that, just for safety reasons. Because it was always getting on us. And there's been guys, I'm pretty sure they're going to be watching, so I don't want to call them out, but uh, that have shown recently that they've gotten refrigerant burns, and I'm like, where is your glove? Like, not only that, like, you shouldn't have to risk yourself. Like, let's say they were hooking up to a system, that refrigerant is shooting out. please do not be the hero. That's another thing I try to tell people. Don't be a superhero.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
not gonna stop that, right? If it's something that dangerous, because then their whole hand is all blistered up. Refrigerant burn is essentially just like a burn. Like you're gonna get uh, blisters. You're gonna mess up your hand, and it could be to where you could lose a hand. Honestly.
yeah. I know a project that I was associated with probably 5 years ago. A project manager sent somebody to go do something to this system, and it had it wasn't HVAC, but it had like Freon or something or refrigerant.
Hmm.
But this gal opened a valve that she shouldn't have opened and got a blast to the face,
Oh wow.
and that turned out to be a huge deal because when we do an investigation we have to figure out what the root causes are, and it was like, why would you send somebody out there that's not qualified to do that? Number one,
Hmm.
she didn't have the training to do it. Number two, and then she ends up with this burn to her face, and that was traumatizing, to her, and it ended up being a big deal, and so, yeah, face shields and,
Safety glasses that nobody wants to wear. Wear
yeah,
them.
training is really important because, sometimes people, they just, they don't know, maybe they're not trained, and, they get sent out. And so it's good to make sure that, yeah, that stuff, especially with chemicals. And
Yeah.
when I had my pressure washing business, I did a job for this guy. He did stucco work. And I don't even
Hmm.
think I've ever told anybody this story, but
Hmm.
uh, I was pressure washing the eaves of a house with hot water, 3,000 psi. And he wanted this place clean, and he was going to do a bunch of stucco work. And what I didn't realize is the hot water from my pressure washer was kind of like, it was like emulsifying the paint on the eaves, and I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
know. So as the water was coming down, it was dripping on my head, but I had a face
Mm,
shield. I had a face shield on, so I
yeah.
wasn't getting particles in my eye, but I
Hmm.
got water from the eaves in both eyes, not knowing
Oh.
that not knowing that there was a little bit of paint that was in that water. And the
Hmm.
next day I couldn't see. So
Oh wow.
I got a pretty nasty chemical burn in both eyes. And so for 2 days, I was, I had to go to this special eye doctor, and he put some stuff in my eyes. And I'll tell you, man, it was so painful because I woke up the day after, and when I opened my eyes, I was in so much pain
Hmm.
that I'd have to shut them. And then when I shut them, it would be I was in pain. I couldn't keep them open or closed, and it was brutal. So I ended up getting a ride to this eye doctor, and he put some goo, I don't know what it was, in my eyes. But after a few days, they healed. But I'll tell you what, after that, as far as like eye protection, and the thing is, Adrian, I just simply didn't have the right eye protection.
Oh, okay.
If I would have had goggles, then
Yeah, true.
but so sometimes you have to like really evaluate the type of PPE that's required, and then wear what's required. Usually, if there's ever any question, look at the safety data sheet for the products that you're using.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing I didn't even think about, that the whole safety glasses. I mean, there's different kinds too, right? Like you said, if you would have
Mhm.
worn goggles, I would have kept it out.
Yeah,
Um, and then in my field, sometimes I forget to wear them, and I've been really adamant now about like finding a pair that's comfortable for me, because obviously the more comfortable it is, the more you're gonna want to wear it. So, like when I do anything with my torches, like brazing or soldering, I didn't used to wear any safety gear, safety glasses or anything like that. So I was like, man, after a while, I was like, I'm probably like messing up my eyes, my eyesight. Any little, like, when you're heating stuff up, there might be something that pops out, right? Like moisture, oil, whatever it is, whatever is on the line set. And I've had some near misses too, where it's like hit me on the cheek or something.
Yeah.
So you never know. So now I do wear that, or I at least try to wear my sunglasses or something to cover my eyes. Like I said, now I'm a little more conscious of it, right? I've been doing this for about 16 years.
Yeah.
So cover myself. Even I wear arm sleeves too. I wear whatever. I don't want any burn marks on me. I don't want any cuts all over me because we see a lot of stuff. I work in kitchens. I work on rooftops.
Yeah.
I'm underneath a lot of equipment. So uh, safety glasses. I kind of forgot about that one. That's an important one too, and the right kind.
Yeah. The other thing I'll mention, because I'm not sure, if you guys use high visibility traffic vests, but if you're out on job sites and you're wearing those
Mm,
vests, it's really critical to make sure that the vest fits right and that you zip it up. I worked on a project in LA, and one of the ladies that worked for the state of California, she was out there for, a while doing monitoring of the project. And one day we were doing our safety meeting, and I said to her, I said, that your vest is a serious hazard. And she kind of
okay.
looked at me funny, and she says, well, why? What do you mean? And I said, well, it's way too big for you. It's like 3 sizes too big. You're walking around with it unzipped. And we're
Mm,
working in a high traffic area the streets are very narrow, and there's a lot of high speed traffic. And what happens is, this actually happened, but a guy got his foot ran over from a car.
okay.
But I said that vest could get tangled on somebody's side view mirror, and it'll
Mm,
drag you down the street,
oh
you know.
wow.
And she goes, I never even thought of that. But entanglement, when you're working around machinery or anything that
Yeah.
spins or traffic, getting caught up or caught in something is, I've seen some accidents where entanglement was the issue, and
Yeah. That's it.
it usually doesn't end well for the person. I'll tell you that.
No, and that's a good point. Going back to the point earlier about fit, like I've seen that a lot too. Like we don't necessarily have to deal with the safety vests and stuff like
Yeah,
that, the high vis stuff. Um, but like I've noticed that I've seen that like a lot around, like where people don't zip them up, they're just hanging around,
yeah,
and you can't really see them on the person. And like you said, anything loose can get caught because if you're around machinery, anything with moving parts, if you have loose clothing, like anywhere, it's gonna suck it right up and take you with it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, man, and that's another thing, right? It's like you said, it's in high traffic areas where you have to be careful with that, but also, what if you're working like at night or something like that? Because I live out here, kind of out in the country area,
uh-huh.
and there's not a lot of lighting. So I get really annoyed when people are either there's workers that come out here and there's just people that walk at night. I'm like, dude, like please, like if you're walking or bicycling, I wear the reflective stuff or something, because
Yeah, yeah,
it's very easy to miss somebody when you're driving through a road like that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's yeah, we
Okay,
kind of.
so
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, did you have anything else? But I'll look at my notes real quick. But
Well,
yeah,
I
the
think
the safety gear is important. High vis. We have tool bags now that have a lot of high vis options, because we're like on rooftops, and we deal with cranes and things like that, where it's like you got to know where everybody is.
you mentioned something a little bit ago about uh, you know trying to do too much, or like kind of like you know people that like to, especially if they're new, they want to prove how good they can work and that kind of thing. And that's kind of an important thing to talk about, because I call that the can do attitude. And
Hmm.
I like that. I like to see workers that are like go getters,
Yeah.
but uh, but you also have to look at it like, okay, if that's the attitude, that's fine, but you have to temper it sometimes, because
Yeah.
the can-do attitude is something that could really get people in trouble, especially if they don't have the training and the knowledge to do certain tasks the right way, and they want to show that they can do it, which is fine. But I've seen that be a factor in why people get hurt, because they're not asking for help. There's a
Yep.
better way, and they just want to plow through it and get it done. And you have to have a balance of we always say safety first, production, you know, after, right?
Oh, yeah, of
Uh,
course.
but there's a lot of companies that have the mentality it's like, production first, and but it should be safety first, production will follow. And if you can't kind of keep it like that, then you can maintain a balance.
Yeah, of course. And um yeah, that attitude is like you're trying to do too much. You're trying to, show that you can do things on your own and stuff like that, which is fine. But when it involves your safety or your body, you need to think twice about that. Because we definitely have I've definitely gotten after, some of the guys when I'm like, like, why didn't you call for help? This could have been like a two-man job, things like that. Heavy lifting. Like, I get after people for that because, I love the attitude, like you said, but like in the end, like, I don't want you guys doing this kind of stuff. It's not safe. And I've been guilty of it too. I've thrown out a back, here and there. I've thrown out, trying to lift heavy equipment or stuff that we have to change out. Because I'm like, no, I'm in a hurry or I can do it myself. And then like I pay for it the next day and I'll be like in pain for like a week now because like as I feel like as I get older, I don't heal as quickly either.
Yeah, yeah. Something I'll share is that there's two types of injuries really. Sometimes, and this is what is really good for like people to think about. There's the injury where the injury happens, you know, you suffer a little bit, you get over it and you move on. But there's a different type of injury that a lot of people don't think about. And it's called a cumulative injury.
Hmm.
And cumulative injuries to your body happen over time. So, like, let's say in the early part of your career, you've got a really strong back, but 20 years later, you can barely walk, and or you can't work because you have back injuries. Well, in that 20-year period, maybe the lifting techniques weren't correct. Maybe that person was trying to do too much with too little. And what suffers is the person's body, and you know the muscles and the skeleton can't handle the load over a long period of time, so you're deteriorating your joints and your body. So those cumulative injuries can happen not just through physical, like lifting and that kind of stuff, but also through exposure. So
Hmm.
when you're around chemicals, and even like the sun, UV rays, skin cancer is huge. Skin cancer is a
Oh
big
yeah.
deal. Yeah. So protecting yourself in the sun. And so think about not just, you know, impact injuries and things like that, but always remember that the cumulative injuries. There comes a time where you get older and you think, man, yeah, I just don't feel the same anymore, you know. And
And yeah,
aging,
by that time it's too late.
yeah, and aging by itself is bad enough, but then when you start adding like small injuries and different things that have happened over the years, it does. At the end, you'll be remembering this conversation we're having.
Yeah. And that can all I don't want to say it can be like completely avoided, but it can be lessened to an extreme to where like you're not feeling those aches or not being able to move. That's my fear, right? Being older and the having kids grow up and you can't be out there with them or do things with them. That's my fear of why I think twice about the safety gear that I have or the way I do things now.
Yeah.
And that's why we always tell people, like, we tell, the guys, because I get a lot of viewers and guys that come to me that are starting out in the field, right? And I'm like, hey, you might want to slow down,
Yeah.
take care of that body. You only have one body that the rest of your life. So, uh, you know, knee pads or gloves, or just asking for help when you got a lot of lifting to do. Like, there's no shame in it. It's just the way of the trade. Like, you're gonna have uh, jobs where you're gonna need an extra hand. Uh, Not everything can be done, by yourself. Like, you're gonna need help. So that's the thing we try to tell people is, you only got one body. Just take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very forward thinking of you to be doing this podcast, Adrian, and I appreciate the message that you get out because a lot of people need to hear this stuff, and the more we share, the better these workers become at their job, and maybe these are topics that they would have never thought about, until something bad happened. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because even here, having a conversation with you, like, there's things coming to mind that I've forgot, or just don't or didn't have down in my notes, or didn't bring up. But
yeah,
it's everywhere, in every corner of any trade is all the safety that you have to think about. And just make it a habit of different things, right? Like, now, wearing gloves for me is like a habit. As soon as I step out of the van, like, and I don't think twice about it, things like that, or asking for help, or anything of that. But it's just that I feel like there's always been that old school mentality of, like, your hands have to be rough, full of calluses and all that. And uh you're it's frowned upon if you ask for help, if you wear knee pads, or any of that. Like, old school mentality is like, you shouldn't do that. You should, man up, or if you get hurt, walk it off. We always hear those things.
yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. Work smarter, not harder. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah, we have
saying.
a guy in the community, like, on Instagram, that's always preaching safety too, and he's always like, work safe and be safe. And there's another guy that says, to come back home the way you left it. Make sure that you
Yeah,
uh are safe at work, so you can make it home to your family, things like that. So it's a real thing. Like I said, burns are frequent. They shouldn't be. Just don't be a hero. Wear those
yeah,
gloves. Let that
yeah,
refrigerant go if it's already spewing out. Like you said, unfortunately, that lady that had it hit her face, I can imagine how bad that would have been, because I've never been completely burned, but I've seen plenty of people posting, their 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 hands after an incident like that, and it looks very uncomfortable.
yeah, yeah. That's you're right. And then they got to live with the scars and that kind of thing, and it's not good. So
Have you noticed any, like, trends that have changed since you started your consulting business, like, or in your early career? Like, do you feel like things are going in the right direction? Are we being safer now? Is it more conscious? Like, what do you think
uh,
about that?
yeah, I think so. So the advancements in safety that I've seen have been huge. When I first started doing work for the oil companies, we were allowed to go out on some of their project sites with just work boots, safety glasses, and a baseball cap. And and then that changed to no, you got to wear high visibility vest. Oh no, now you got to wear a hard hat. Now we have a glove policy. Now you got to go through our school and this and that. But the oil companies, I always say, are kind of like they're the tip of the spear when it comes to safety, right?
Hmm.
And I remember when they started making us wear the high visibility vests and stuff, and then like 8 or 9 years later, I'm at the grocery store and I see a person, you know, gathering up shopping carts and they're wearing a high visibility vest, and that never existed before.
Oh yeah.
And then, just the awareness level. overall has increased, I think, because safety equipment has gotten better. You just see much more of it, all around. And, I remember one time I was driving down the street with my wife in the car, and we were going by this traffic enclosure, and there was a lot of like signs and cones, and it was in the street, and all these guys had high visibility vests and stuff. And she said, she goes, before you started working out in the field and doing, work in traffic and things like that, I never really paid that much attention to construction zones. But now, she said, my behavior and how I view a construction zone and how I drive through a construction zone is much different than it ever used to be, because my awareness level's higher, especially because, I work in those type of zones, and there's a lot of bad things that can happen if you're not, protected. But even look at the traffic zones and how they set up traffic exclusion zones and things on the freeway. I mean, I've seen some major advancements, and now they're getting into like AI. So,
oh, really? I feel like that's everywhere now.
yeah, no, but it's going to be and this, I saw this kind of evolving, but they're going to eventually have, it's going to sound crazy, but they already have cameras that can do it. You could set a job site up, or a camera up on a job site. It can scan 20 workers, and it's telling you, it'll tell you like which workers are not wearing safety glasses, hard hats.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a person doesn't have to do that. And there is an advantage to that. The advantage being that, like, if I go out and do an inspection for a client, I'm only there for a small window of time, right? Maybe a couple hours. And I could see a lot of different type of behavior. Some, people are doing things the correct way, and some stuff is questionable. And we kind of like to focus in on that questionable behavior and then try and fix it, right? But when you're viewing something continuously with cameras, and they have that kind of software that can do that, that's going to paint a completely different picture. So it's really bizarre. And even a lot of the heavy equipment now has the sensors on it, so they so there's a lot of advancements, a lot of change has happened. And I think most of all, it's for the good,
Yeah, it can only be good if it involves safety. But so when you go out on these inspections, or when you're watching how they work, do you think they're on their best behavior because you're there, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I've done these things. We call them we've called them safe work observations, and I'll go out and watch sometimes just one person do a task for like 20 minutes. Okay. And here's what happens. So you go out, and I do these inspections, and then what I'll do is see, are they doing the task according to the safe work procedure that the company has? And even if I'm watching them, what a lot of people don't know is, in like a 20 or 30-minute period, even if they do something that's questionable, or they're trying to like do the task the right way because they know we're watching them, they'll repeat the questionable behavior within a 20-minute time period without knowing they're doing it.
Oh,
So
okay.
a lot of times, and we're not out, it's not out, like we are not always out to say, gotcha kind of thing, and catch them doing something that's questionable. We're looking for the things that they're doing correct too, to make sure that, that safe work standard, everything's captured in there. And then if there is things that are questionable, then we'll address it. Like last week, I'll give you an example. Just last Wednesday, I think, I was at a job site. I've worked with these guys. I've seen them out on jobs before. And there's an equipment operator on a mini excavator, and he has another guy working next to him with a shovel. And these guys have worked together, and it's a tight area though where they're working. So they don't even know what I'm looking at or looking for usually. And so, but one of the things that happened is the guy with the shovel went he walked underneath the boom of the excavator.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that's a no-no,
Yeah.
because you never want to be in close proximity to the equipment, but
Mhm.
walking beneath the boom, that's like
Yeah.
something you should never do. So at the end of the site inspection, I go over all the positive things that I saw, and then I'll say, hey, I did notice one thing that was kind of questionable. And I'll say, I noticed that you walked under the boom of the excavator, and the operator, had the machine on, right?
Mhm.
And so, I said, why did you do that? And I said, first, did you realize you did that? He goes, oh,
Yeah.
and he tried to say, no, I didn't really know. And then, he knew, though, he did it. And I said, okay, just what I'm looking for is complacency. So I said, look, that that's probably not the best thing to do. And he said, well, no, the operator and I made eye contact. And I said, he still had his hands on the controls, though. And so
Mhm.
I said, I would advise you not to do that anymore. And I'm not there to, like, bust their balls. I'm there to try and coach them. We
Yeah. I
want
mean
to,
that.
we will get farther with sugar than we will with vinegar.
Oh
So
yeah.
so basically, you just want to go out and you're going to have conversations about safety. And when you have those conversations, and I go out and they know I care, I do care about them. And that's the main thing. I just want to make sure that nothing happens to them. And complacency does set in when you've been working with people for a long time, the same crews. Um,
Oh
so,
yeah.
yeah.
And nobody wants to just be like lectured or told what to do. And it's good that you have conversations and you're kind of open about that. That's the best way to get through. Because like nobody likes getting like getting after at, I guess.
Yeah. And a lot of people are super sensitive, more sensitive than you realize. And
Yeah. Or
a lot of the men that I work with, man, there's a lot of people that they're like babies. We're like big babies, right?
yeah,
Nobody likes to
or
be
they'll
told what to do.
just hold a grudge or something like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean it happens.
yeah.
uh
It's for the greater good, and as long
have
as
you ever
people know that, that's the most important thing.
yeah, of course. Have you ever been called out to anything like, I don't know, that's super dangerous in your eyes, like when they call you out to do these site inspections or anything like that, like the stuff stand out a lot when you go to some of these?
Yeah, like sometimes I go out to do a site inspection for a client, and the when I do the inspection, I might see something that's super, like, dangerous, and it may not even be my client, or any of their
Oh,
crew.
okay.
It could be their subcontractor. So
Okay.
then what I say is like, well, it's, if you hire a sub, you need to manage them, you know.
Oh yeah.
And I remember this time where we were doing a job, or where was this? I can't really say where it was because, yeah, I can't really say where it was, but we'll just say that there was a few workers and they were putting this coating. Well, not a coating. It's like a liner down in it, and it's fabric, and they put it over the soil, and then they spray, like, it looks like almost like tar or asphalt, but it comes out of like a pressure washer wand, and there's two
Okay.
nozzles, and one nozzle sprays the product,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like liquid tar and or asphalt, and then the other product, or the other part of the wand, sprays out water. And when the
Okay.
water hits this chemical, it will solidify, so it'll make the liner, it's like one giant piece instead of a bunch of small pieces. It kind of like
Oh, okay.
it fuses it all together. So I go out there, and there's guys that are working, and they don't have the right PPE. And I'm looking at the whole operation, and I go, no way. This is like, this is super high risk. And I said, where's your eye wash? What
Mm-hmm.
happens if you get chemical in your eye? Where are you going to wash your eyes? Because you're in the middle of a 50-acre site and there's no water around here. and there's a water truck driving by, and the guy says, "Oh, I'll use the water truck." I go, "No, you can't do that." And they have drums of chemical out there. Well, long story short, when I looked at the safety data sheet for that chemical, it specifically says, if you get the product in your eye, do not wash your eyes with water, because it'll solidify, it'll make it worse, right? So that tells me that the workers aren't trained on the products that they're using, and they've got acres and acres of, area to do with this liner. So the likelihood of something happening, especially in wind, which they were working in wind, if the products blows back on them and gets in their eyes, there's going to be a serious problem. So I poke around and find out, these guys, they've never even been trained on this stuff. So then I tell my client, you can't just hire a subcontractor and not vet them. You need to make sure that they really know, what they're doing, because if something happened and the guys got blinded, or, there was some kind of an incident, OSHA comes out, and that contractor is not just going to get cited or fined, but the general contractor can get fined too, because, that's their job site. And it's called failure to communicate the hazard. And OSHA can, they could write violations for that, and you could be fined. So that's the other part of it. We're talking about, preventing injuries, but we're also talking about, we need to protect you as an employer from some kind of a regulatory exceedance or fine. One fine could put you out of business.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, because when you go to help these companies, essentially they're in business, and they need to have those standards, keep those accidents down. But like I was gonna ask you, can one of these issues completely shut down a business? And what are some other things that you deal with, as far as like OSHA, any investigations, or liabilities, property damage, I think is another one.
Yeah. So the thing any of your listeners should be concerned about or thinking about, if you're a business owner, but it doesn't matter how big of a business owner you are. The idea when we're talking safety is to prevent property damage, bodily injuries, any kind of spill or a fine or a regulatory citation, because all those things could lead to you having a loss, and the loss could be minimal, and as far as dollars and cents go, or it could be something that's enough to put you out of business. Like I had one client, they had one environmental issue that happened that cost them $750,000. Then their insurance premiums went up almost $400,000 a year. It's a big company, but OSHA looks at it too. They'll weigh it out, like based on the size company you are. Their goal isn't to put people out of business, just so you know. Their goal is to just try and educate, but sometimes people end up with fines, especially if there's repeat offenses. But so the idea is to protect your company from losses, and the losses could be any one of those 3 or 4 things that I told you. And sometimes companies, they don't even know where to start with their safety program. They're like, well, what should we do? Like, what should we be doing, right? And so sometimes that's where like having a consultant will help, because then you could say, okay, well, where's your biggest area of risk? If you're an HVAC company and you have 5 employees, but you have 5 vehicles out on the road, and those are company vehicles, maybe fleet safety is your biggest risk that you should be looking at, And so then I would say, what kind of a fleet safety program do you have? do you just hand the keys to these guys and let them go drive around and go to jobs, or do you actually check their driving record? And so that those are things that you can do to protect yourself as an employer. And
and we don't think about that stuff too much, because like people don't understand that as a business like ours and a lot of other trades that do service, we're putting guys in trucks and sending them out. So we're liable for them, their vehicle, all that stuff that we have to worry about, uh, and losses and like you said, body like accidents or bodily injuries, property damage, stuff like that. That all goes into account,
yeah,
into this kind of the stuff that we're talking about, and people don't think about that.
yeah, sometimes doing the work is the easy part. It's all
Yeah,
the other part of the business that it's hard. You've got to manage, money. You've got to manage safety. You've got to try and prevent losses, and you're dealing with a lot of different types of personalities. So
yeah,
you,
and one of the ways you help these companies is like, do you document all this stuff for them, so that they can have that on file somehow?
yes, I do. And one of the other things I do that I didn't mention, I do this for a lot of businesses, is I'll set them up with a digital workplace safety program so that they could do their own inspections and stuff, and they could do it
Oh,
on their
okay.
phone or their tablet. Because as an employer, it's important for you to have documentation that you have been doing proactive things with your safety program, so
Hmm.
that if the day ever comes where you are sitting in front of an OSHA investigator, you could say, look, we're not, a fly by night company where we're not doing anything about safety. Here's some examples of different things that we've done, like our inspections and this and that, especially with vehicles, and
Yeah.
but anything that you can show, the paperwork that you can show, and it might not even be related to the job site where the incident happened, because
Hmm.
on a incident where this guy fell through the roof when was it, early part of the year, he OSHA asked my client for like 15 different documents.
Okay.
Do you have an injury, illness, and prevention program? Do you have a heat illness prevention program? Did you have a daily tailgate safety meeting that day? Was it documented? They start asking for a lot of different types of um, documents, and like, out of the 15 documents that they asked my client for, I think only 3 pertain to the work that they were doing that day.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so when you have to respond to that kind of a request, what happens is sometimes OSHA will say, we want all these documents, and they'll give you like 3 weeks.
Hmm.
And then you're like scrambling because you have no site inspections, no record of ever doing any site inspections. Maybe your company doesn't do tailgate meetings. Excuse me.
Hmm.
And there's no record of them. So they're a lot more lenient when you have all your programs in place and all your documents in place, because then you can say, look, here's everything. And
Yeah.
so that's where a lot of employers, especially the smaller companies, they don't really even know what they should or shouldn't have. So that's what I try and do, is help them, like, with the documents and make sure they're covered. And then it's up to you as an employer, though, to make sure you're doing the filling out the paperwork, and everybody's following the rules, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's half the battle there too, because
Yeah,
keeping up with it and getting your employees on board. But
yeah,
that's very important, because yeah, when they come after you for something like that, that's you don't want to be scrambling, like you said. You want to be prepared and whatnot, because we've had incidents like that too. And as a small business, that can be scary,
yeah,
having to deal with accidents and stuff, because you honestly, you're like, what do I do, what do I need?
yeah,
So we've had a couple of incidents. We had one where it ended up, they tried to do a lawsuit. because they're trying to get on the roof that we specifically told them not to.
Mm.
An employee we had, and it was during a really bad rain. They're trying to get up to a roof that their ladder doesn't reach.
Yeah.
So they did some workarounds, to
Uh,
get up there, and we had the messages. We were like telling them specifically not to, or to wait for us.
yeah.
If it's too dangerous, we won't even do the job, because after that we just turned away the customer anyway, because
Yeah.
us as the technicians did not have adequate equipment to even get on that roof. So like, why were we going to try either way? So
Yeah.
that employee tried to sue us, tried to go take us to court and all that, and we just try to provide what we had, but we didn't have much, honestly. And
Yeah.
now, kind of like talking and discussing, I have a better idea of that kind of stuff. And since that incident, it sucks that it takes an incident like that for you to kind of think about your procedures, your trainings, your
Yeah.
safety guidelines, and things like that. But since then we've learned, to be a little more strict, a little more transparent with both customers and employees, and trying to avoid things like that. And that's why I always try to make sure we have everything that we need for each of our guys. And I always tell them, if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't look right, please do not attempt anything like that. And we dealt with stuff like that as a small company too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, the documents and all the paperwork, if you're ever looking for anything, feel free to reach out to me, because a lot of the documents and stuff I have already.
Mhm.
Like for working at heights, I have this fall protection work plan that I put together. So before somebody goes up on the roof, or you're going to go up there and do a project, you kind of go through these check boxes and make sure that all these things are kind of uh, dealt with before, and then
Mhm.
that's your serves as your kind of like your documentation too, that you're going to do A, B, and C, right? So nobody gets hurt. So yeah, if you're looking for documents, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. But like I said, we've had a few things, nothing major, but that was one thing where this guy tried to get on a roof that he shouldn't have, in bad weather conditions, and he fell. I mean, thankfully nothing catastrophic happened. He had a knee surgery, and he's back to work. He's not working for us anymore, obviously, but
Yeah, yeah,
he's still in the field. He still does the work. He's fine. Like, thankfully nothing bad has happened. But like, in your, I'm sure you've seen a thing or two. So like, uh some of these what I think people can relate to that are watching is like rooftop, you know, situations. And you've actually seen where this can be pretty catastrophic, fatal even. So,
yes, yes.
can
Uh-huh.
you kind of share a little bit about the dangers of rooftops?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get hurt, especially well, even just simply uh, climbing. You know, I was asked to go do a assessment of a rooftop where one of the clients was a large car manufacturing company, and they had 1 million square foot warehouse, and on the roof of this place, you can imagine being 1 million square feet. There was probably like 6 or 7 giant HVAC units, and then there was hundreds of skylights.
Hmm.
And so they wanted me to kind of like come over there to help them figure out a way to protect people that come do the HVAC work from being able to get too close to the skylights, because they were worried somebody will fall through, because they didn't have barriers over the top, and they're not going to put the barriers on because of the cost. And so we came up with some ways to mitigate that. But one of the things that was really interesting is just going up on the roof with one of the representatives from the facility, because it was an interesting rooftop ladder that you access through the inside of the building, but you have to
Okay.
climb pretty high to get to the top, and
Yeah.
the guy that was taking me up there, believe it or not, he was in no shape to be climbing. And about halfway up the ladder, I mean, it was hard for me, and I'm in pretty good shape, but I realized this guy's struggling to even climb the ladder, and
Oh, man.
he didn't have fall protection on.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's risk right there, right in front of me. You know, just going there to do the assessment. I'm like, you shouldn't even be up here, accessing the roof like this.
Mm-mm.
So I was a little bit concerned for his safety, and then but that just shows you, just like simply even climbing, are you capable of even climbing up and down the ladder safely? And so in the fall protection work plan that I have, I'm very careful about, you never want to put one person on that roof, well, like one person too many. If there's no reason for a person to be on the roof,
Mm-hmm.
then don't allow them on the roof, because then you're eliminating a lot of risk. Like if you have a crew of 5 and you have 3 guys that have to be on the roof, but the other 2 don't have to be on there, but they want to go up there anyway because they like looking around and they want to be where the action is, that the answer is no, because that's how you reduce risk. Okay, so they might not like that, but you do your task on the ground level, they'll go up on
Yeah.
the roof. As they're climbing this ladder, they can use fall protection. They put the harness on, they have the clip in the lanyard, and
Mm-hmm.
you're constantly clipping as you're going up, so
Yeah.
that there's we call it 100% fall protection,
Yeah.
meaning that there's no way somebody could fall. And
Yeah.
so they'll have 2 lanyards and 2 clips, and when they're climbing, they put one up, they
Mm-hmm.
climb up, clip the other one, take the other one off, and it's rotate back and forth, right? So you
Yeah,
have
and
to,
that
like,
that's a
yeah,
good point because I've been on a few because like we normally deal with small buildings like a lot of fast food restaurants, and a lot of them have the access inside and it's not a big climb. But
yeah,
I've been to a couple that it's an extensive rooftop. It's, I don't know how many feet, but like
yeah,
I've caught myself getting tired, towards the top or the top quarter of it. And I'm like, man, like I'm already like kind of winded, trying to climb up here. And there's situations like that. Like that's another thing you might not think about. It's just getting up a ladder. Like, is it safe? Is it like that being that tall? You might get a little winded. And us as service techs, we're usually taking up gear with us too, like tool bags or whatnot.
yeah,
And and I had one too where it was a sketchy roof where it was it's a building that has that like that wall on top. It's like usually 4 feet, 5 feet. And the only access you get is through the back. So you can put up a ladder and get up there if there's no indoor access, because usually we do strip malls. So
yeah,
they might have one at the end of it that everybody can use, but they might not.
yeah, right,
And this one place decided to put a carport in the back, and we have to climb up on the carport and then climb up to the roof. And I had one of my scary moments there because as I'm putting the ladder to get on the final part of it, that carport is metal, and the ladder can slip. So I actually had one slip out from under me, but I was already towards the top, and I kind of just took a little dive on the on the rooftop to get up there.
yeah,
Uh, and that again was why I was like, I need to figure out a way to strap my ladder down, and be more conscious about it, because some of these rooftops, like you said, it's a struggle to get up there sometimes, and you never know. So whether it's like you said that little fall protection gear like that, or making sure you can strap a ladder somehow, like there has to be some sort of safety when you're getting up on the roof. That's a lot of guys that are watching are going to be HVAC guys that are that deal with this every day, and I want them to think about that.
yeah. Ladder safety, it's so critical. And if you're going to set your ladder up, like I have a client that their crew is so good about, they will secure the ladder at the bottom and the
Yeah,
top.
I've been trying to do
Yeah,
that too.
and they'll use anchors They have, I've seen them use anchors at the bottom where they'll just drill right into the asphalt, and
Oh, okay.
they'll put it, because they're going to use the ladder. It's going to be like that for, a week. So they'll anchor that ladder at the bottom and the top. And then, at the end, when they're done, they pull the anchors out, and they'll wire those things, or they'll tie them off real good so they're secure. Because when you're going up and down with your tools, last thing you want to do is have have the ladder not secure. And they're sketchy enough as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we work on a lot of older buildings too, and
Yeah.
you never know what you're gonna find.
Yeah, but going back to your question, as far as like the working from roofs and heights, it's one of the top 10 hazards of all things. Slips, trips, and falls, right, is one, as far as OSHA is concerned. That's the top hazard, right? So that should be really at the forefront of your mind. And it's not just falling from heights, but even just slipping and falling on flat surface. So open holes and things like that, when you're up on the roof, especially with skylights, I've seen situations where people have fallen through the skylights. One person sat down and didn't know that the skylight was not secure because he was a new worker, and the skylight on this particular building, the building was old, so he didn't even really know it was a skylight. And part of it was because he didn't have the training. The other part was because the skylight, it kind of got yellow from the sun over the years, right? But you couldn't really see through it. And he went to go take his lunch break, and he was going to sit down on the skylight thinking that it would support him, when in reality it was like an eggshell, and he just went straight through and to the ground below. So that's why when we're out doing our jobs and things like that, it's important to have tailgate meetings, talk about all the hazards, and don't assume that everybody knows what because you bring a new worker up there and you think, oh, I hired this guy from a different HVAC company, and he probably has all this knowledge already. And sometimes they don't have any knowledge because they weren't trained properly. So you go up there, and assumptions will get you in hot water if you think that people know what you know. That's one thing you have to always remind yourself. I know my experience, and I'm comfortable. I won't get hurt on a job because there's certain things I'll never do. But you bring in a new worker, it's easy to think that that person knows what you know.
And that's a big one, because like when you, even if they've done it before, or been in the field before, like you never know what they were trained or how things were done at their old company or anything like that. And some people just have bad habits, and that's something that we deal with too. Is whenever we have older guys, that want to do things the old school way, or whatever mentality they have. Even my dad, I get after him a lot about wearing his gloves and doing things the right way. Uh, because some people come from that tough man mentality. So
Yeah.
just always it's better just to go over it, even if you think they know, or whatever. Just go over what you need them to know, or train them the way you want them to operate at your business, and you'll be a lot better off.
Yeah, you have to be strict about that too, because sometimes if people don't want to play by the rules, even though they're knowledgeable and they know the trade, sometimes you got to just let them go, because they're going to be too much of a
Oh yeah.
liability. The reason also is that sometimes if you bring in other workers, and they're the person that's supposed to be training them, but the newer workers see this guy not wearing gloves, not tying off the ladder, not doing all these other things that you would be doing if you were up there, then it's basically telling that worker that it's okay to take shortcuts,
Oh yeah.
especially if that person is the supervisor, right? So I mean, we could talk about this stuff all day. There's a lot of facets to safety that a lot of people probably don't think about. But
Yeah, of course. So when you go out to these sites, do you ever get like pushback from these companies? Like once you tell them like all the things that they need to change or implement?
no, I
No.
don't. No, a lot of my clients, they're proactive with safety. They've been around, so they know what it feels like to be stung or have to, have workers, be sent to the clinic, or so they want to do well with their safety programs. And but if maybe like 10 or 15 years ago, it was more like that. But
So it's changed a little bit, like the mentality and
yeah,
the the way they do things now.
yeah, I think so, because what happens when you don't comply is your insurance rates go up. And
Oh yeah.
so it's, a company, I've had some clients say, we want you to help us with our safety program, but we only want to do A, B, and C. And I
Hmm.
say, okay, well, I think D, E, and F is important too, but if you only want to do A, B, and C, that's fine. And then later on, they call me and they go, Terry, you were right. We should be doing D, E, and F too. So,
And
then
and
that,
that's the thing with with
yeah,
with with like running a business or anything. Like there's things that you might not think are important or
yeah,
you might not think about, but everything always comes back, to get you at one point. So you,
yeah,
you got
yeah,
to worry you got to worry about your employees being safe. You got to worry about like you said, liability or insurance purposes, a lot of different things, property damage.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Did I had while I was looking into like the stuff that you do. Do you have a sibling that's a paramedic or something?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Does he ever? Do y'all ever talk about like stories like I don't know. Does he see any of the work related accidents that maybe you are familiar with?
Yeah, yeah. He's actually been a paramedic for 20 years.
Oh wow.
Um, he's ran over 20,000 911 calls. And one day he told me, he said, I wish I was more on the end of the business that you're on.
Hmm.
And I said, why? What do you mean? He said, look, he goes, I see the after effects. You're
Oh
on the
yeah.
you're on the proactive side, and I'm on the reactive side. And in all honesty, like for him, the things that he's seen over the years, he's got some major PTSD because there's things that once you see those things, you'll never get it out of your mind. And it doesn't matter how tough of a person you are. After you've ran 20,000 911 calls, for him to try and go to sleep at night, it's hard because he's seen so many different things, industrial accidents, lots of, car accidents, shootings, stabbings. I mean, our first responders, I give them a lot of credit, because it's the things that they see is insane. And a lot
Yeah,
of the average
definitely.
the average people probably don't think about that too much either. But uh, when he first started his career, I was at his house one day, and he had this book, and it was a photo album, And
Hmm.
so I start flipping through this photo album, and he goes, "Oh, he goes, I call that the Book of Gore." And
Hmm.
I said, "The Book of Gore, right?" So it's like these different scenes, that different accidents and things that he had been on. And his goal was he wanted to write a book.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
and so he was going to use some of these pictures to write this book and whatnot. But I got about probably 10 pages in to the photo album, and I shut the book, and
Yeah.
I couldn't look at any more. And I went with him one day on a ride along,
Oh.
and we worked a 12-hour shift. And the other thing that people don't know is on a lot of these counties and these cities, a lot of the emergency services, they're understaffed. So a lot of the first responders, when they go work a 24-hour shift, they're running like 18 or 20 calls per shift. So they don't
Oh
get a lot
wow.
of rest. So it's like one right after the other, one call after the other. And what I saw in one day, uh, going on a ride along with him, was eye opening. I couldn't believe it. And, so I always think in my head when I'm at a job and, sometimes, is there a safer way to do something? I'll ask myself, is this the safest way? And I
Hmm.
always think about the Book of Gore. And I don't ever want to be in the Book of Gore. And I don't ever want anybody I know to ever end
Yeah.
up in the thing. So that's kind of like my own personal thing. I haven't really shared that with anybody, but that
Hmm.
book really had an impact. And I can't imagine what the things that he's got going on in his mind, of all the different scenes that he's seen over the years. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a job I would recommend, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine because
Right.
once I had seen that, I thought that was an interesting dynamic because like you worded it perfect. You're on the proactive side, and he's on the reactive side. You're trying to prevent these things from happening, and he's out there dealing with the aftermath. And I just thought that was an interesting aspect of it, and uh, it really opened your eyes, right? Like you see the stuff that happens, and even
Yeah.
doing that ride along, I can imagine,
Uh,
the stuff that they have to go through.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a tough
It's
job, but
man,
but
I'm grateful that we have people that can actually do that, because society, we need that. But that comes at a cost, a personal cost to them. And was talking to you earlier about cumulative injuries over time,
mhm.
right? So sometimes it's not like, hey, I hurt my knee or I fell and broke my leg. It could be a mental, illness or an injury from somebody seeing, all those types of scenes, because, that's an injury, that impacts a person when they have PTSD and they can't
Oh
sleep at
yeah,
night. Those are things that, you know, that that's a
yeah,
from a lifelong career in emergency medicine, you know?
yeah. Because even me just being on social media, some people will share like that kind of stuff, like accidents that are caught on like security footage or whatever, and I'm like, I can't even watch it. So
Yeah.
I can imagine, having to be there in person and deal with it. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have seen, tons of stuff in the fields that you guys are both in, because like you deal with this too. You deal with investigations. I'm sure you've seen people go through with it after the fact too. After
Yeah.
an accident happens, we don't want, or that's what we're trying to prevent. We don't want guys doing too much, putting themselves in that situation, whether you're the employee or the employer. It takes both to have a safe work environment, and we need to see more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's much easier to just be safe.
Just be safe, work
Just
safe,
be
be
safe.
safe.
Just be safe.
All right,
Yeah.
Terry. So I've really enjoyed the conversation. I really love having you on here. We've talked about a bunch of great things.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to part with before we get off the air?
No, I mean, we covered a lot of stuff here, and I appreciate, the fact that you're doing this podcast and you've got listeners that are, actively listening to you, and they want to get better at their job by listening and educating themselves. That's important. I think it's important for us to be good teachers to everyone in our trades. So
Hmm.
if this helps with that, that's great. And if anybody wants help with their safety program or they have questions, the best way to get a hold of me is through my website, which is www.yellowknifesafety.com. So I'm more than willing to have a conversation about safety or whatever you need. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll have all that information to find you in the description of the YouTube and the podcast as well. That way,
awesome.
if anybody needs anything from you or wants to learn more or get in touch with you, they can do that.
Yeah.
But it's all like that's part of the job, being safe. So I just want everybody to be safe. Get home to your family. You know, I always talk about improving as a technician, as a service tech. Uh, your craft, but in the back there is safety as well. It should be at the forefront
Yeah.
actually, but you need to improve. And I've been through it. I wear knee pads now. I wear gloves now.
Yeah.
I wear the proper gear when I can, and I'm always looking for ways to be safer out in the field, and that's, I think, important. So thanks for coming on, man. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thanks a lot, Adrian. Appreciate it.
All
Have
right,
a good
so everybody watching, listening, appreciate you guys for coming out, and see you guys.